What is up, blockchain gang? This is the Daniel Draghi Show, where we will be going over organized large-scale PvP tactics in the game of MIR4. I've broken up this guide into 3 videos of formation, communication, and leadership. There is no one aspect that is more important than any other in my opinion, as a successful squad will need to master them all. This will require a great deal of effort by every member if they want to be organized to not only train the soldiers, but reinforce that training with practice, because fighting only once a week will not be nearly enough to become proficient in combat. A new unit should expect to practice PvP every day with attendance around 75%. Once the concepts are understood and well executed in combat, practice can be lessened to about once or twice a week to keep skills sharp and help acclimate new players. It can even be done in a peaceful server during the Valley Capture event. I would suggest that you have an AM and a PM time scheduled for 30 minutes each day dedicated to PvP sparring. Many players will look forward to the competition to test their combat ability and builds that they have been working so hard to perfect. Or don't you know?
That's the sound of the man working on the chain. Gang. That's the sound of the man working on the chain. Gang.
First, before we begin, I want you to understand that YouTube only pays me about $10 a month for the hundreds of hours I spend creating guides and content. I think that is low, but I'm probably a bit biased, and my opinion doesn't matter. If you believe I should be earning more for my effort, please take a second to like the video or comment,
"What the fuck?"
and hopefully Master will get the message. Much like individual fingers of a hand that are weak and easily broken, when we come together to make a fist, we are much stronger than the sum of our parts. And that is what this video is really about, the power of friendship. It isn't just a Disney movie plot stolen from historical folklore and protected under modern copyright laws. It really does work, guys. Let's talk about the formation of a 15-person party. I've come up with 4 categories that each player should fall into depending on their relative strength and class. First, we have the front line, the beefy boys. This should be the 4 strongest warriors and lancers in the party. The strongest warrior of the group should be the shot caller, and responsible for 80% of the comms. Next, we have the mid line, which is made up of 3 Taoists, followed by the back line of 4 nukers that consist of the strongest arbalists and sorcerers. Finally, there are a pair of flankers on either side to protect the mid and back line, made up of the weaker arbalists and lancers. When engaging the enemy forces, one of a few things will happen. You will easily steamroll them because you are superior in strength. You will get steamrolled, or the fight will go on for a long time due to the forces being evenly matched. Formation and position will be the deciding factor in these close matches because you are in a battle of attrition with the enemy, and being as efficient as possible will ensure your victory. While in battle, the shot-calling warrior should be calling target swaps and coordinated nukes if your team's immediate damage is not enough to kill the enemy frontline. What I mean by this is playing defensively for about 10 seconds so that everyone's cooldowns can come back up, and then using them in one area on a group of enemies for maximum damage. We call this zone the kill box, and the formation is what makes setting this up possible, while also mitigating the damage output of the enemy. If your enemies are only hitting 3 to 4 people per ability, and you are hitting 6 to 8, you will be dishing out approximately double the damage. Here we can see one of the most common kill boxes for defenders of the valley, and this should probably be nerfed in my opinion. Some people make the mistake of trying to make a stand here, but that allows your enemy to retreat to safety much too easily, doesn't allow your weaker players to fling spells from the ledge above, and you're unable to call in reinforcements to flank the enemy from behind. We will cover the 3 most basic tactics used by this formation. The first tactic is known as front-to-back fighting. As the front line engages the enemies they see, the mid and back line stay just out of maximum range. Moving into range, they cast abilities and nuke targets. They spread out as much as possible to avoid the enemy kill box. When their abilities are all on cooldown, they retreat to a safer distance. The job of the front line is to hold the line of scrimmage to contain as many people in the kill box as possible. The job of the mid line is to debilitate and CC the enemy front line while removing debilitation, CC and healing your ally front line. The job of the back line is to burst, apply heal reduction, and CC the targets called out by the shot caller. The flankers are to ignore the main target and intercept enemy flankers, or if there are none, to focus on the enemy back line. Killing weak targets or causing them to kite, use defensive abilities, or waste abilities on a single target. Their goal is to hurt as many targets into the kill box as possible, and then join in with the shot caller's damage without getting overextended. If the enemy is unable to be contained, and they charge forward recklessly, the squad must change tactics by calling for the collapse on enemy targets that are overextended, with the flankers and the nukers, who threaten the mid and back line. This is known as the kite and peel tactic, where squishy targets immune and avoid as much damage as possible. while the tanks hold back the rest of the enemies until they can be popped by the DPS and flankers. If kiting, is important not to run into the enemy kill box, but also not clump up with your allies. The final tactic is when the enemy is nearly routed, and players break formation to chase down any remaining survivors until the lead warrior rallies them back into formation. I apologize for the length of this video, which is why I decided to break them into 3 separate parts, but I think it is important to go over the roles in more detail to provide players with a better idea of how the flow of combat should look if they're doing it correctly. This way they can easily identify weak points in their offense or defense and correct them. We need to talk about alternating damage. If you have 15 or 30 people all bursting a group of targets at the same time with the same abilities, you will run into a few issues. Even if you can take down a few targets, you are vulnerable until the entire party's cooldowns are back up. When the enemy casts an immune ability, they will immune much more of the incoming damage. This is why it is important that each individual group are ranked, and the strongest is given additional responsibilities and organization. Instead of everybody just blasting the enemy willy-nilly like a techno song at a rave, think of it more like a round, where the strongest players from each group start the attack with row, row, row your boat gently down the stream, and then the second strongest come in with their combo, and then the third, and then finally the flankers join in on the final round. This way, if your debilitations are stripped, your target becomes immune, or they get a burst of healing, you will still have enough damage to take them down. We are not trying to do a maximum damage combo here, like in small scale or 1v1 PvP. We are going for maximum synergy. First, you should debilitate your target, empowering all bash combos in soft CC. Before using the bash combo though, you want to chain CC the target. The best CC chain starts with a knockdown, directly into a stun, and then silence. If the stun is applied at the right time, they won't even have time to dodge recover. This has the highest chance of preventing them from using an immunity ability to escape. But you don't want to use 4 knockdowns all at the same time. So the first front line will use a knockdown, and if they succeed, they will continue to stun and bash the target. If they fail within 2 seconds, the second front liner could start using their CC and bash combo and down the line. This creates volleys of burst damage and CC that is much harder to avoid, immune, or heal through when compared to maximum sustained damage or a short single burst. The easiest way to rank players is by power. Each player needs to know their rank so they know their ability order. The rank 1 frontliner will be the party leader, and you can see their target indicated by the blue icon. Their job is to call targets as well as control the movement of the party. The second frontliner should be focused on the first, and the third on the second, and so on. This tells each player when to act by following the actions of the person ranked ahead of them. If you are the first Taoist, your job is to organize the skill order of the heals, resurrections, buffs, debilitation removal, and CC removal based upon the level of the abilities of all 3 Taoists, since it drastically alters their use in battle. If you are the second Taoist, but you run up and heal the front line at the same time as the first or third, those cooldowns will be wasted by overhealing the target. The rank 1 DPS is responsible for calling for assistance from the flankers if an enemy flanker breaks through the rank and starts brutalizing with squishy targets, also changing the focus of the healing for the next Taoist in line. They also need to maintain a healing debuff on the enemy front line at all times. The flankers operate much more independently, as their goal is to shatter the formation and organization of the enemy by causing controlled chaos while listening for calls to change priority targets or assist the backline in kiting. The best part of this formation is that it's scalable with much larger than 15 vs 15 combat. By adding 1 or 2 more parties, all you have to do is designate a lead frontliner, and the other rank 1 frontliners will follow them and attack their targets. As long as each rank 1 knows where to go and who to attack, everyone else will also know. Since players of the same class should be watching each other, they should be open to message the other player privately to give them advice if they are not performing their duties correctly. When moving, the formation should be kept at all times unless the enemy is routed. When the leader calls for a rally, you should get into formation, and a rally should be called before any movement takes place. Just follow the people in front of you and you will know where to position. This makes it much easier to communicate with body language instead of verbal directions. Be sure to check out the upcoming guide for leadership and communication, which will cover how to plan a battle before it commences and how to command a battle using voice comms for an international group made up of multiple languages. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe so we can do this again sometime.
Commander, do you think that we have any chance of surviving?
If I were your counselor, I wouldn't ask me that question. I would ask him.
Why?
Because he's the one who believes in miracles.
I believe in miracles since you came along, you sexy thing.